Okay, so Mary Gillespie with Skewed and Reviewed out of Phoenix, Arizona, and I am here with...
Will Bates, composer of The Better Sister, is what we're talking about today.
Oh, okay, great. Can you tell me a little bit about the show?
It is starring Jessica Biel and Elizabeth Banks. I was about to say Elizabeth Holmes, because I did a movie about her a long time ago. But yeah, it's a very kind of complicated drama about a murder that takes place in episode 1, and it's sort of very unclear who did it.
Great, and it is streaming on...
Amazon.
Amazon, okay,
Yeah.
Great. So what is your role in that? What do you do? Do you compose all of the music?
I do, yes, all of the music. So in the case of this, I was given very early versions of the episodes, the first 2 episodes, and I just start writing sketches based on trying to kind of figure out what the tone of the show is going to be. Sometimes the showrunners have a very clear idea of what they want to do. Sometimes in projects they're not sure, and it's not immediately clear what it should be. So in the case of The Better Sister, it was very much the latter. And so like really experimenting. I worked a lot with the director of the first 2 episodes. His name is Craig Gillespie. He and I did a movie called Dumb Money together a couple of years ago. So we kind of have a bit of a shorthand together. And he's someone who really knows when it's right, if that makes it, which is really helpful for us. Sometimes it's kind of easier when, we're talking about a thing. I always say that to filmmakers, it's so much easier to have me write stuff at the beginning of the process, and then we can have something to talk about rather than just constantly saying adjectives to each other all day long. So.
Which do you prefer? Do you prefer for you just to come up with your own, or for them to give you a clear direction? This is what I want, this is what it's supposed to sound like?
Every project is different.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm really, quite often I'll read a script and just have very clear ideas of what this needs this. But then when you watch the first rushes or the first dailies of the production, you realize that the tone of that is completely wrong. Because you never really know how an actor is going to interpret a role, or how the director might be seeing the image of the story. It really just depends. It really depends on what the project is.
Well, that's interesting. How did you get into this line of work?
It's something I always wanted to do since I was a little kid. I sang the whole of Star Wars to my parents when I was 6, and they bought me a violin, and I was terrible at it. And then I ended up graduating to the saxophone, became kind of a jazz musician for a long time, and then started releasing techno records as a younger man, and then was the lead singer in the band for a while. But the whole time, all I ever really wanted to do was score movies, and I thought that scoring commercials would get me into scoring movies, which of course those two worlds are very different, and they exist in parallel, and it was very difficult for me to cross over from one side to the other. But I did that for a while, and I think it was important for me to develop my skills, and also having such a background that I had of like different skill sets and different genres of music was very helpful in developing the skills as a composer. But of course, eventually I went from scoring orange juice commercials to, scoring short films for people, and then those short films would then maybe go to Sundance, and then that Sundance film would maybe get picked up, and everything just gradually grew. So by the time I was in my late 20s, I was finally scoring the stuff that I'd been trying to do all along. So yeah, it took me a while, but
nice. So your inspiration comes from your life, from other people? What is your inspiration?
My inspiration, that's interesting. I guess, my wife is a painter, and we've been together a long time, and it's funny, I was just saying this exact same thing, but I guess that's how this works, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how this works.
Yeah, it is. It's just something that I don't say very much, but she has the belief that I share, which is that there's no such thing as the sort of lightning bolt of creativity, that it comes from, we wake up in the morning, take the kids to school, I go to work, she goes to work, she stretches her canvas, starts painting, I do the same thing, I open my session, I start playing, whatever it might be, and then at 4 o'clock, pick up the kids, call it a day, and I believe that my inspiration comes from that process in a way. I'm at the service of story. That's my job, is to respond to what's been made or written, and I feel like again, every project is different, but ultimately I'm there to serve the purpose of the story. And sometimes when I get in the way of that is when it's more complicated, and then I realize I have to fix it, because that's the balance of what we do. You have to sort of remember what the job is sometimes.
And remember that it is a job.
Yeah.
And that you have kiddos.
Totally.
And that type of thing.
And also, to go full circle, how lucky I am to be able to do it. And
Yes.
the inspiration comes from the fact that it's crazy what I do for a living. It's amazing. I'm just making noises all day long, and it's awesome. So
That's exactly right. And my question just went right out of my head. The books. So I'm a big book person, and I know a lot of movies now are being based on books or
Yeah.
comics or games or something like that. Do you, if you or have you ever had anything like that? And do you read the book first? Do you play the game first? What do you do?
totally. So much of what I've done has been book related. The first TV show I ever worked on was called The Magicians, which is based on a trilogy of books. Then I did a show called The Mayfair Witches, which is based on Anne Rice stuff. So I always read the source material, and it's similar in a way though to what I was saying earlier about reading the script and having a clear idea. Like sometimes it's like, oh, it's so obvious to me what this should be, but then I'll be watching the rushes and be like, oh wait, no, that's not going to work. It's completely, and that's amazing that person brought this other perspective. But I find that I now seem to be buying the books when I get the job, and then sometimes I don't. With The Better Sister, for example, I ended up not reading the book until after we were done, which is kind of odd, but because I realized that they had taken it in a slightly different direction.
So when you did that, when you read the book afterward, did you go, oh, maybe I should have done this differently?
Not at all.
Like, nope, it's fine.
It's perfect. Yeah.
That sounds great. Well, and sometimes you just have to do that. You're like, yep, this works. This definitely
Yeah, and those things generally have their own identity, and I feel like that's always our job as well. Like, it was the vision of the showrunners to develop that IP in its own certain format. So,
All right. Well, that's all I have for
Great.
you. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Nice meeting
Yeah, nice to chat.